Yeah, dude. So have you ever heard of the Iced Coffee Hour
Oh God,
podcast?
dude, this is crazy. Okay, let's talk about this because like I have been following this channel for a while, like passively, because anytime there's a new channel on YouTube that like breaks out, like I'll use it as fuel in the back of my brain. Like these, they can't be better than the Vanguard. These direct, and then I find out that this guy's like a real estate landlord. He's like a millionaire. That's why he can. I guarantee you, he pays people to come on this podcast. Anyway,
What?
they're like they just live to like suck off the Patrick
Yeah.
Batemans of the world, the Ben Shapiro. But they had Ana Kasparian on. Why? Because she's the rational leftist. She's the one that's going to be like super polite and cool and totally chill when she's interviewing Ben Shapiro. You know, like I mean, like whatever. Like the main problems are with those crazy lefties. Am I right, brother? Like, oh my god, I just hate the homeless and any black people I see.
Yeah, the thumbnail here says they are evil, right next to one that says it's pure evil. So I don't know who or what is so evil, but I'd never heard of this podcast.
You'd never heard of this podcast, bro?
No, dude, I
They're
literally
like,
never had.
bro, that's crazy. They've been pushing themselves so hard. Anyway, go on about the iced coffee hour. Ana Kasparian takes her opportunity to go on with this rich landlord and trash some other leftists while pearl clutching at the same time. It's quite a feat.
Yep. So as I said, I'd never heard of the Iced Coffee Hour. I had to look up what the hell this podcast was that these clips were from, because I started noticing a few clips floating around Twitter of Ana Kasparian, TYT's very own, on this Iced Coffee podcast. Here's one of her trashing Lance from the Serfs. Once again, we've covered multiple instances now of this happening, but she's just really stuck, guys, on this one moment from Tim Pool's show where Lance from the Serfs said what apparently you're not supposed to say about. So let's take a look here. It's hilarious because she says, I'm not going to name names, but then, is obviously talking about Lance. So let's take a look here. This one's just 44 seconds long. Thought this was pretty funny.
I think there's a difference between someone who's more interested in defending their political group versus someone who's willing to concede on issues or areas where concessions make sense. So I'll give you an example without naming names. Someone who identifies as a leftist fairly recently, like goes on Pool's podcast and debates him on a number of issues. And during that debate, there were just obvious concessions. Like, for instance, no, you don't allow abortions of a healthy fetus, like a minute before the woman is about to give birth. Like, that's a ridiculous hypothetical. Mm-hmm. I get that it's a ridiculous hypothetical. I think there's a difference between...
Yeah, so obviously that's stupid for a number of reasons.
Butthurt.
Yeah, she's so butthurt about this one Tim Pool, argument that Lance made about abortion. And she keeps going back to the well over and over again to reference this. She's brought it up at least like 3 or 4 times now. And it's like, even if you disagree with Lance when it comes to that specific policy, maybe you don't feel the same way. Maybe you feel like he went too far or whatever. I mean, okay, that's one area of disagreement you have with this guy. But guess who he's sitting across from in the interview you're referencing? Tim fucking Pool. You're going to act like Lance is the one who's this hyper partisan hack, this unreasonable radical who just, you can't have a normal discussion with. Are you kidding me?
Just said it should be illegal to not believe in God.
Dude, exactly. This guy says the most unhinged shit
in a 50-state landslide.
Yeah, exactly. And meanwhile, we've had disagreements with Lance. We've debated the dude multiple times, and he's super reasonable. Even when I have hardcore disagreements with the guy, he's cool. He, is reasonable. He listens to your perspective. He gives you his perspective. It is what it is. Like he's an opinionated person.
Canadian as fuck, bro. Let's be real. We're Midwesterners. We know what we're like cousins with that. Like we're like when he talks about the small-minded kinfolk down south, like we have people from Texas here. Like he has us. So we're it's like you know what I mean.
Exactly. Yeah. So I just think that's really ridiculous. And also, it's not like Lance is, just going out here beating the drum every day of like, hey, you know what? We should totally make possible and legal? Women having abortions 2 minutes before the baby is born.
Legalize drugs and murder.
Yeah. Like, yeah, he
Tune
said
into
that
the next
one
episode
time
of Serfs.
because Tim Pool was like trying specifically to back him into a corner where he'd have to say something outrageous. But yeah, it's not like if you tune into the Serfs, you're just going to hear him advocating for like, aborting babies minutes before they're born. It's completely ridiculous.
Really? Because I thought that one of his paid sponsorships was for a punch card. It's like after you have 18 or 19, once you get to your 69th abortion, it's free. It says they literally, it's an on-call service. They're like, moments before you give birth, don't worry. We'll.
Yep. Anyway, so there's the one clip.
Standard code hanger procedure.
Throwing Lance under the bus once again. And of course, Lance used to be a TYT affiliate. He was on the show sometimes. He'd, jump in and talk with the
we used
crew.
to kind of rib him for being a TYT, and we'd be like, bro, why aren't you calling them out for this like obvious bullshit? Like somebody in the channel was talking about like how they got reacquainted with how bad the TYT union busting was. That was one of the first things we ever covered as a show. That's why, we never had any delusions that we were ever going to be like picked up, sponsored, like courted by, friendly with any other fucking show but us. That was why we became the internet antagonists. But anyway, one of the first things that you guys ever watched that we were really sinking our teeth into was when we were covering the fact that, there was so much blatant hypocrisy on the left between like advocating for things like, unions, advocating for things like cooperative structures, and then guys like Nate Robinson getting busted by like Business Insider and Vice with articles about like how, hey, you fired all your staff because they tried to fucking turn this into a worker co-op, and you were like, actually, this is my project, and Current Affairs is about me, and it's my creative vision, and it's not the socialist project that you often proclaimed that it was. And then this Jank, he's running as this like progressive insurgents against Christy Smith in like Orange County or wherever the fuck he lived. I can't remember the name of the California district off the top of my head, where he did so piss poor it was humiliating. Anyway, he was union busting throughout all of that time period, like at the same time. So it's all well documented, and it was actually covered by major news outlets as well.
Yep, absolutely. And I give Lance a lot of credit for eventually leaving TYT when he did. Obviously, it's not easy when you're an independent channel or host or whatever. It's important to have those connections and
Mike also left
larger channels. Yeah,
Kyle's
Mike Figueredo also left TYT around the same time for I think the same reasons. So shout out to those guys. Clearly, Ana has not forgotten or forgiven. And here's another one. You guys might remember Bennie. We actually had Bennie on the show right after she left TYT, again in response to some of the just increasingly deranged sort of like transphobic rhetoric coming out of Jank and Ana. Specifically, Ana had this whole crusade against the term birthing person. I'm sure you guys remember all of that. Snowballed into this whole like weird campaign against the trans activists, and Ana just painting with a very broad brush, talking about this whole group of people and saying that they're all unhinged and they can't be reasoned with and stuff like that. Meanwhile, they were all trying to facilitate an actual discussion. Most of her critics, they were just asking her to agree to a simple debate or discussion. Meanwhile, she just went crazy and started talking shit, banning people, blocking people who disagreed with her, all sorts of stuff. So really, she was the one being a snowflake. She was the one being unreasonable and refusing to have a simple discussion with people who had a simple disagreement with her. Either way, she took to this podcast to rehash this episode with Bennie, and I thought this was particularly disgusting. She's really just insulting Bennie here and acting like, without TYT, Bennie is nothing. Bennie has no future as a commentator without TYT, which is ridiculous. But did you want to say anything about this one before we watch it, Zach?
Well, I would just add that I at one point tuned into a show that Ana Kasparian did without the benefit of TYT for Jacobin, and let's just say people in glass houses shouldn't throw stones about being beholden to the empire that they're a part of.
Because of what I had shared with the public about how I feel about some of this inclusive language, Bennie felt.
Well, pause that for a second.
I don't know.
She's like, I just hate the inclusive language. She doesn't even mince words. She's just like, inclusive language. It's like, what's hold on, Anna. What's wrong with being inclusive? Well, it's actually exclusive to be inclusive. Oh, so you've been listening to the Daily Wire. I see. That's so funny. The way that she just immediately off the bat, she doesn't even actually have a problem, but she just hates trans people. That's how you know. She's just like, I don't like trans people. I think they're icky, and I want to grasp at any straws I can to give myself a argument to, otherize them and, make myself feel big.
Why Benny felt like it was a slight on her, but it wasn't. And there was a group of people on Twitter, and I knew this was going to happen. These people on Twitter who like take up a cause and then they become like weirdly obsessive with the cause. And they were just in Benny's ear
People
about
who love justice.
You have to hold Anna accountable, and TYT is not the place for you. It's a transphobic community. You need to leave. You need to leave. And they were like urging Benny to leave. And I just knew to myself, I thought to myself, if Benny takes their advice, she will have no platform and she will disappear.
And none of Gavin, can you pause this? I just want you to take a look at a room with like the worst vibes I've ever seen in my entire life. Oh my God. Okay. One, like I am looking at the dude with the like really expensive jacket, probably this rich guy over here. And I'm seeing a guy that would, let's just say I would keep my eyes on my beverage if my and my girlfriend's beverage if I was hanging. I don't know. I get bad vibe. I get negative riz, and then we have the wannabe Austin Butler kind of tucked away in the corner. You know what I mean? Evil Vanguard. LOL. True. There's only one righteous Vanguard, right? You will read about the anti-Vanguard, but only here can you read the true gospel of Vanguard. No, anyway, I just wanted you to see what no Riz looked like, Gavin, for a moment. I know it's foreign to us.
Yeah, bro, this looks like a screenshot from that movie, The Zone of Interest, that's out right now. If anyone's seen it, you know what I'm talking about. Super beige, monochrome kind of color palette. But yeah, I totally know what you mean, bro. Let's keep watching this.
Who are encouraging her to leave give a damn about her. They're not going to follow her to wherever she's going to, do a show or launch a YouTube channel. This is their little cause right now. They think they're in a war and they're pretending like they give a damn about Benny. They don't give a damn about Benny. They give a damn about presenting themselves as people who purport to care about transgender people. But as soon as Benny's gone,
I think it's interesting.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say that I think it's interesting that she's making this all about the Twitter drama and just assuming that Benny only left the Young Turks because she was pressured to leave by a bunch of angry Twitter trolls. Again, going back to this very broad stroke depiction of trans activists as a bunch of unreasonable, crazy people who just want to engage in online blood sports for the sake of conflict and stuff like this. At no point does she grapple with the fact that actually potentially Benny was uncomfortable, that Benny actually didn't, feel comfortable in the workplace that you had created. That is also a possibility. This is a person with agency. I don't think that, a highly educated person like Benny would just give in to some Twitter mob for the sake of it, knowing full well that she would lose out on, networking opportunities and money by leaving this organization. Like, obviously Benny knew what that meant, that it would be tough to start your own show after separating from a big network like that. It is for anyone, but it's also funny because Anna's like, if you leave TYT, your career is over. Well, I hate to tell you, Anna, but quite a few people actually have left TYT and they're bigger now than ever before, or at least definitely bigger now than they were when they were part of the Young Turks. Unfortunately, a lot of those people happen to be right-wing grifters. But let's just say, leaving TYT is not necessarily a death sentence for your career as a commentator.
Yeah. And also, it's not like being on TYT is going to make your career as a commentator. Do you know how many people that contribute to TYT I've never fucking heard of? And I do this for a living. I react to their content, be it good or bad, ball or strike, And has blocked us on Twitter, though. She didn't like the heat that we brought to the kitchen, apparently.
Yeah, exactly. That's so true. Also, there's a ton of people that I I have no idea who they are when they pop up on the Young Turks. I'm like, where the hell are you getting these people from? But yeah, I always appreciated Benny's commentary on the Young Turks, but it's not like she was a main part of the show in the first place. She was never like a John Iadarola or something like that. She would pop in occasionally, much like Lance from the Serfs. But yeah, I think that Benny has been fine.
Also, the entire ethos of independent media is that you should have your own content space, that you should be able to speak your mind, that you should be, unconstricted by the, corporate interest of whoever your fucking boss is. That's why we all started our own shows, right? And that's something that's foreign to TYT because they've never really actually believed in that. It's always been about growth. It's always been about profit margins. It's always been about, Cenk getting more and more eyeballs on him personally, as opposed to other people on the platform. So odd to be like, you're never going to be anything without TYT. It's just, it's narcissistic. It's rooted in a bubble. And she honestly sounds like she's giving a rant that like Michael Douglas would have in like an 80s Wall Street movie.
As soon as she makes that decision to leave TYT, Benny's gone for real from their consciousness, from the media in general. And I think it's just, they did damage to Benny. And I don't know if Benny realizes it right now, but these people don't care at all. They don't care about making society better in regard to, like, all my focus would be is how can we ensure that we improve our healthcare system?
What the I love how Ana too, she's
really,
now
I just want to finish this with For the Children.
Yeah, but I love how Anna's in the space now where she surrounds herself with people who like fetishize, discourse and discussion, and she constantly is talking down on people like Benny and trans activists who apparently are just so unreasonable that they can't even be engaged with in the first place. But meanwhile, Ana Kasparian won't go anywhere that isn't a safe space. She won't go on any podcast where the hosts aren't just going to lap up this kind of anti-leftist rhetoric that she's serving out right now. They just want to agree with her. They just want to coax these sound bites out of her, dissing other progressives and other people on the left. But she won't go on any actual podcast where they're going to push back.
Exit. That's the gate. That's the roadmap. First it was Dave Rubin. He just wanted to talk about ideas, man. He just wanted to talk about ideas. Why is the left afraid of his ideas? It's all about his ideas, man. Yo, relax. I'm talking to you about my ideas. You know what I mean? Oh man. Then it was Jimmy. Jimmy just, hey, I've got these ideas. I've got these really bad ideas. Oh God. Right. Well, he wanted to talk about them right into the warm snatch of the deranged right-wing audience that YouTube harbors for anybody who wants to debase themselves enough to snatch it up. And then you've got Ana Kasparian, right? And as you just put it impeccably, Gavin, she's fetishizing, the discourse thing where it's like, yeah, let's talk about nothing,
with people who won't push back on me at all.
Exactly. And that's what's crazy. It's like, oh, I just don't want to be disagreed with. I just want to lecture. I just want to be fawned over. I want to be praised. It's like very like sixth grader wants to be top of the class. Like, give me a ribbon. You know what I mean?